Wellness with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instruction. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen.
By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
So, Paul Rosen, there are a number of misconceptions about the world in which we live.
Don't
now, one
say
of them,
it.
A great historical misconception is that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. You've heard that one before? The Emperor Nero, here's why that's a misconception. He actually lived in the 1st century BC, and the violin was not invented until the 16th century. How could he fiddle if there were no fiddles to fiddle with?
Maybe he was fiddling with a fiddle fern.
Boy, maybe you just answered the whole question right there. But the point is, there are misconceptions all around us, and we're going to talk about a major misconception this morning that could have a direct impact on your well-being.
We are, and it's about your immune system, which stands between you and illness. But sometimes it turns on you. Is this a matter of chance, or is there something you can do besides take medication to deal with? And will a vegetarian diet enhance or diminish your immune system?
What is the immune system exactly? What does that consist of? When we refer to that, what are we talking about?
Well, it's pretty complicated just to say in very short order. But basically, the immune system is what keeps us from being overwhelmed by powers or influences that would undermine our vitality.
So when I think of the immune system, I'm thinking of like white blood cells, which protect us from disease and invaders to the body. Is that right?
All true. But at some point, it appears that our bodies can and do attack themselves for what is apparently no reason, and that is what I want to emphasize. And that there is no such thing as the body attacking itself for no reason.
Is that the misconception about the immune system?
That's the misconception. There is no such thing as the body attacking itself for no reason. There is a reason. There's always a reason. It's just that in Western medicine, they haven't really discovered what the reason is, and that's because there isn't only one reason. There are many, many, many reasons why the body attacks itself.
Well, in medical terms, I would think that there is rarely only one reason for anything, and this is one more of those things.
If you limit your evaluation procedures to blood tests and skin tests and hair tests and urine tests, etc., in other words, all the physical tests, chemistry tests, they only can reveal a certain part of the spectrum of what's going on.
So
a good example is the visual spectrum is not the end-all, be-all when it comes to light. Light actually has within it a myriad number of spectrum, most of which we can't actually perceive or see.
You're going pretty deep there, Mr. Science. So.
UV, ultraviolet radiation, we can't see it. We can use a piece of technology to see it or identify it, but we can't see it with our own eyes. Infrared, same thing. And then if there's X-rays and cosmic rays, and anyway, it just goes on and on. So does that mean it doesn't exist?
But the point here is there's a larger picture, and there are things that we don't immediately perceive with our immune systems.
And blood tests and those other various types of chemical tests do not reveal the expansive spectrum of what is actually going on. So other types of methods of evaluation are necessary in order to begin to sort of reveal what is already there, but identify it, and then allow us to address the underlying root cause. What are those things? Well, the body attacks itself because there's an ongoing microbial presence in the body. For example, the flu bug. When you encounter a flu virus, your body may react typically runny nose, runny eyes, sore throat, fatigue, muscle discomfort, etc. When all of those symptoms appear to go away, does that necessarily mean that the virus has been vanquished and eliminated from your body completely?
Given your tone of voice, I'm going to say no.
The answer to that question is it may not be. And if it isn't, then it will find an area of your body, an organ or a gland, a tissue of some sort, like that found in joints, for example, and hide out there for a while, basically dodging and evading our immune system in the form of our white blood cells or whatever, and hang out, and at some point, because of its opportunistic self, all of the factors coming together, say you're overworking, say you're overstressed, say you're challenged in ways that undermine your overall vitality, say you eat poorly over an extended period of time, and boom, it starts to rear its ugly head. Now, that's the virus component, not always there, but often there. Then there's the chemical component. All of the chemicals in the atmosphere, the air, the water, the soil that we get exposed to, the poisons that accumulate over time, will basically create an opening, a chink in our immune systems.
So we may have, to summarize, a virus that's latent in our body somewhere. It's kind of hiding out, as you indicated.
That is one possibility, potential cause.
But that's one potential cause, but it's hiding out in there, waiting for the right set of conditions to allow it to burst forth. Is that
flourish,
right?
Allow it to expand and, do its thing.
So it may attack parts of our body it didn't attack before, our bodies. It may go out there and may not necessarily manifest itself as a flu virus.
I mean, the short answer
else.
to that question is yes. Right? Can any part of the body can become, can fall victim to an environmental impingement, such as an immune challenge.
So is this what you're referring to when you say the body attacks itself?
No. Well, so I just set up the scenario whereby the body isn't then attacking itself, is it?
No, you've got some foreign invader that's been hanging out in there and waiting for the right conditions for it to manifest.
Thus it attacks. It appears to be attacking itself.
So that's the misconception.
Correct.
It's not really attacking itself. It's attacking something that was in there earlier, has been waiting for the right opportunity, and now those conditions have arisen.
And any organ or any gland or any tissue can fall victim to this phenomenon.
But the interesting thing is it's still your body doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is providing protection.
Correct. That's exactly right.
So I'm going to leap ahead
here. It's doing
here.
exactly what it was designed to do. But because these bugs have worked themselves into the tissue, into an area, it is the long-term implication, right, I mean, generally, if you get a bug, the body goes to work in an acute fashion and does its thing. And hopefully, eliminates the foreign invader, and then completely, and then there's nothing about it, and the immune system goes about doing whatever it's supposed to do. In the case of autoimmune disease, there is this foreign invader that is in a particular organ, gland, or tissue, and it's not being addressed, and the body is unable, for whatever reason. It becomes a chronic inflammatory pattern, and that leads to so many of the what is seen in radiographs, X-rays or MRIs or whatnot, of degenerative tissue. Say like in a joint, for example.
So the issue is your immune system is deficient. Is that right? It's not properly attacking the virus. In other words, it doesn't have the resources in terms of its own strength to get the job done.
It's more like an environment. It's like a swamp. Not necessarily that it's deficient, although it could be. It's that the body as a whole is deficient. And the question is how do you clean up the environment? Right? That's the key here. How do you clean up the environment and make it inhospitable for these bugs to exist? How do we clean up the environment? First biggest step is nutrition. That's why nutrition is so critical and so important in the restoration of any kind of illness, functional illness, right, including autoimmune disease. Because there are so many different approaches. There are approaches of using antibiotics. There are approaches of utilizing antivirals. There are other types of medicinal approaches that in the right hands with the right management can be useful in the short term. But ultimately, it's all about what you put in your mouth. And in some cases, remember there are different types of immune systems in the body, and the original power guys went out there to clean things up in the acute stage. They're not active at this point.
So I guess what I'm not understanding is I get the point that your body may be deficient in some ways and therefore not able to deal with any virus within it. But what about a problem with the immune system itself? Can you have an immune deficiency?
You absolutely can. You can have an immune insufficiency.
In a sense, then, they're two different things.
But you don't necessarily have to have an immune insufficiency in order for an autoimmune disease to manifest. And also the fact that the body has been undermined over an extended period of time by eating so poorly. If you're experiencing an autoimmune disease, no matter what it is, no matter what type, your body is attacking itself for a reason. And up until this time, that reason has not been exposed. It's not been revealed. What are the common types of autoimmune conditions? Labels. Research has indicated some 80 autoimmune conditions, and some researchers believe there are 40 to 60 more. They keep finding more and more. Type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's, and Graves' disease. These are the autoimmune diseases of the thyroid. Hashimoto's is a hypo or low-functioning thyroid. Graves is hyper or excessively active autoimmune disease of the thyroid. Then there's the digestive types of autoimmune disease, celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, for example, Crohn's, IBD in general, irritable bowel disease. There are reasons for that happening. Just have to find out what they are using a different type of evaluation tool, which is nutrition response testing.
That's all very enlightening right there, Paul, because that list includes things that I think most of us would not have specifically thought of as autoimmune issues.
There are autoimmune diseases of the liver, a sclerotic liver, for example. There are autoimmune diseases We've already talked about the pancreas with the diabetes, the thyroid with the Hashimoto's and Graves, the digestive, the intestinal with celiac and Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, right? There are autoimmune diseases of the spleen, for example. Lupus. I'm sure people will be familiar with that term. Lupus is essentially an autoimmune disease of the spleen. And then, of course, you can have lupus of the skin and joints and kidneys and heart and brain and blood cells. And the list goes on and on. There's Sjogren's. There's, of course, rheumatoid arthritis. So any tissue, any organ, any gland can undergo an autoimmune challenge, a challenge whereby the body is attacking itself. But what?
But what?
Is attacking itself for a reason. Now, how do I know this? Because these people have come to me, and I have worked with them, and I have helped them immensely in all different types of autoimmune conditions.
So the types of autoimmune conditions are many and varied. They sound like they vary quite a bit in seriousness also, because lupus can be fatal.
Well, any condition that is allowed to degenerate can ultimately rob the body of enough vitality that it shuts down.
So despite the many differences in these various conditions, do they have common causes?
They do. They do have common causes. Number one, of course, is the environmental impingements that I talk about every week, which include, we were talking about it, immune challenges from latent viruses or latent parasites or latent fungi, mycoplasm. There is the accumulation of toxic chemicals. There is the accumulation of metals. What I see mostly are aluminum and mercury and arsenic, for example. And there are accumulations of, what do we got? We got immune challenges, chemicals, metals. Oh, and ongoing food sensitivities.
And that would relate directly to the ability of your body to deal with any of these things. In other words, your body may be in a weakened state and you don't know it. And you also may not know, as you've indicated, that you may have some kind of latent virus hanging around your
Any kind
system.
of latent microbe is possible. Any kind of latent microbe. But my point again is that it is one of those things. It is not for no reason that your thyroid is being attacked. It is not for no reason that you may be experiencing Hashimoto's or Graves.
So you would be showing symptoms of one or more of these conditions, is that right?
Yeah.
If you suffered from them.
I mean, the symptoms you might experience are a vast number of symptoms. And depending upon which organ or gland is affected, those are the symptoms you'll experience. So if your thyroid is being affected, for example, you'll experience vision issues. You'll experience irritability or mood swings up and down unusually. You'll experience fatigue. You'll experience hair loss, brittle nails, dry skin, or other types of skin conditions. You'll experience digestive problems. In fact, thyroid is always linked to the digestive problems of Crohn's, for example, or irritable bowel, or even disruptive menstrual cycles for women, or difficult menstrual cycles for women. It's all connected to the thyroid.
Why then do standard medical tests like blood tests not show these things? Why don't they show up, and why can't you take one of those tests, say a blood test, and be able to diagnose correctly that you have, say, one of these conditions?
Well, you might be. I mean, diagnosis is essentially observed. It's an artificial description of a condition, right? Somebody goes, well, I see this symptom, that symptom, the other symptom, every time there's a thyroid issue. Diagnosis is just an observed, a symptom pattern. but it doesn't tell you why. Why that thyroid or why that pancreas or why that spleen is upset. Doesn't tell you why. And if it doesn't tell you why, then you can't figure out how to address it.